All right, so let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to welcome John Robinson, an education consultant at the Harvard Group. John is going to walk us through the differences between paid family and medical leave and paid sick leave. He's going to explore the key terms and challenges, as well as how to navigate administration complexities, align leave policies, and avoid costly compliance mistakes. If you have a question, feel free to submit it in the chat feature and we'll try to go through them as we go along. We're going to keep it kind of interactive today. And then if we don't get to your question, we will definitely follow up with you afterwards. For those who are looking for SHRM and HRCI credits, they will be awarded via email for those who are eligible. And the recording and slides will also be sent as well via email. So, John, feel free to take it away. Thank you again.
All right, Brianna, thank you so much and welcome everyone. Really excited to be here and talking about putting the paid and family and medical leave. Certainly, it's a huge trend right now. There's a lot of activity happening at the state level, as well as activity happening at the municipal level. So, understanding what all this is and how this is going to be impacting you on a daily basis is really, really important. I
Oh, John, you just muted.
Yeah, sorry. I know I sound like an attorney, but I am not one. And it is really important that you are working with an attorney. So, this is the number one takeaway that I want to give you today. You cannot do all this on your own. There's a ton of things happening from a federal FMLA, from ADA, from paid medical and family leave, from all the non-paid state leave laws. So, when you're thinking about your plans and what's best for your organization and your employees, you absolutely need to involve your HR attorney in reviewing everything and making recommendations. We are not your attorneys. Corporate Synergies is not your attorney. You need to have an attorney. So today, we certainly want to understand the evolution of paid medical and paid family leave, certainly explain the differences between all of these coverages, speak on the complexity associated with all this mandated state leave, and then certainly we want to be able to work and discuss consultatively how employers are really responding to all of this legislation. Let's take a look at how all the leaves work together and then give some tips and takeaways on how you can really tackle everything that's out there and certainly offer some additional resources. So there's a lot to cover. We're going to get right to it. I'm going to start with my very famous pyramid of absence. Those of you who have heard me speak before, I love my pyramid of absence. Cornerstone benefits around FMLA, ADA, Americans with Disability Act, PWFA, Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. On top of that, we're building with all that non-paid state and municipal leave laws. What's going on at the paid municipal paid sick leave laws? Then the state required paid medical and family leave and workers' compensation. Everything in maroon is mandated by law. And then on top of that, your own disability programs, STD, LTD. Maybe you're in a state that is offering optional family leave insurance and your own employer-sponsored leaves. The pyramid is tall. Understanding how all of these programs work, as well as how they interweave with your sick vacation and PTO programs, is really, really important. And when we're talking about people not at work, so that leave management portion of it, you want to make sure we understand what is the eligibility. What do employees need to do to apply? How are we communicating with them? How are we documenting everything? What are we doing to understand how people are using time and when they're taking it? And then at the end of the day, anything that is job protected, and most of these leaves are, right? Any of these mandated leaves How can we help you stay at work or return to work as quickly and safely as possible is the new mantra that we all need to be following. Gone are the days that you can say no. These laws are not being enacted to protect an employer in any way. So, understanding all of these pieces and how all of these things work together is becoming so important with the full understanding that getting people back into the workplace as quickly and safely as possible is the number one way to be compliant. So, what are we doing about that? Well, first thing I think we need to understand is how did we get here? And you can look at this very colorful map, but I think the takeaway here is currently the United States is the only industrialized country without a national paid family leave program. Most countries to the north of us in Europe are offering 26 to 52 weeks of time paid when we're talking about mothers and infants. Others have very lucrative family leave programs. The United States is the only country that doesn't. And I really think that COVID highlighted that, caught everybody off guard, right? What do you mean FML is not paid? It's not paid, never has been. So that's where we've seen so much more activity on jumping on the bandwagon to say, hey, in our state, we need to do something to help people because we know only 27% of private sector workers have access. Only 43% of employees get STD through their employer. And among the lowest paid workers, 95% have no paid family leave, 90% lack access to STD. I always say when you're thinking about all of these new paid medical and family leave programs that are out there, they truly are geared towards helping the lowest paid employees. So the people who are working in retail, who are working in dining, who are working in maintenance or hospitality, these are the ones that they are going to be probably able to make the majority or most of their salary while they are out on leave because they're the ones who really had no coverage. So when you're talking about only 58% of employees have any PTO available to help care for a seriously ill family member, these numbers add value, right? They really highlight the need for us to be adding paid medical and family leave. And certainly when we're talking about our economy, which is going hot right now, right? What employers can do to attract and retain talent is important. And I do feel that paid medical and family leave in these states only adds to that, right? So it's adding to every employer's ability to have a coverage available that is going to be seen as very important to most employees. So understanding that need and why we got here is really, really important. I've got a nice timeline here. Out of the blue, right? Out of the blue, we know Rhode Island, Cali, New Jersey, New York, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii too. We're early adopters, right? We're early adopters of those old statutory disability plans, right? So we're out there, from the 40s, maybe a little dabbling from Puerto Rico and Hawaii in the 60s, and then literally no one does anything, right? No one says, hey, we want to be like New York. We want to be New Jersey. Hey, nobody said we want to be like Cali, right? Nobody said that. For how many years, right? We're talking 30 years. Nothing happens. Then California adds paid family leave. Rhode Island, New York, still nothing's really happening. But then COVID happens, right? And when you see that timeline, we definitely, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Oregon, Colorado, Maryland, Delaware, Minnesota, Maine. I mean, the activity starts picking up. So the paid family leave, the paid medical and family leave, these programs really became much more in vogue because COVID. And I do feel that, from the federal government side, there's been very limited attempts to monetize FMLA, right? Because of that, a lot of states were like, hey, we need to do more. We need to help people in our state. So again, seeing these timelines really tells the tale about, hey, what really happened here with that huge gap? I mean, literally nothing happens from 1969 to 2002 when California and New Jersey start adding in the early 2000s. And hey, they were already doing it. So that's a big, big gap. But it's here, right? It's here to stay. So, what do employers need to be thinking about? Well, certainly a big piece as we're moving forward and your state is saying, hey, we're going to add paid medical and family leave, important dates and deadlines for contributions and claim activity. That's the number one thing that you need to be thinking of, right? Most of the states, other than Minnesota, which they fully funded it with their COVID money. But all the other states say, hey, we have to start taking deductions now so that we can fund the program. Okay, well, employer, you need to understand that. And then the next most important thing, is there an option for a private plan? Right? Fully insured, self-funded, or does everybody need to go to the state? Very similar to Rhode Island, right? Very similar to the District of Columbia. Everybody's got to go to the municipality. Well, most of the new plans do have a private plan option, but with that, there's also things that need to happen, right? Filings need to happen, programs need to be accepted. You, as the employer, need to say, hey, we're going to go with a private plan. And you also need to look at that. Hey, what does our workforce look like? Where do we need this? And do we want to go to a private plan for everybody? Or hey, is it more effective in Cali to go to the state? Maybe, right? So it is putting a lot more on employers' plates because they have to look at all this stuff, right? It's not an easy, hey, even like the old days, New York and New Jersey, right? Boom, well, we know what we need to do, right? We've been doing it for years. But when you throw Mass and Connecticut and Maine, that is going to take some additional review and understanding. And what is the best solution for you as an employer based on how many people we have in that state? What's our exposure? What's the options? What's the cost? Sometimes the state plan is less expensive, but other states like New York said, hey, state plan, private plan, it's all the same. So, and other states have done that as well. So, understanding that and following it is only adding another layer of complexity for you all and your jobs, right? To make sure that you're compliant with everything that's happening and are ready to go as the state is moving towards that go live date. So, what are some things that employers need to be thinking about? Hey, am I ready? Well, I think we know 55% of employers agree there's no easy way to put all this together, right? It is so hard. It's it's really, from an administration and compliance perspective, it's added a whole new layer of complexity. And most employers say, hey, we got so much else going on. We don't feel ready to administer this as well, answer questions, because we know the first line of defense for any employee is to come to you and ask a question. Well, when we know that every single state is doing it differently, it makes it really hard, right? Because to become eligible for paid medical and family leave in Maine is very different than Mass, is very different than Connecticut. So keeping up with all of the information and making sure that we understand and what's going to be happening and how are we going to track this and making sure that that coordination, right? That pyramid is there, right? All of these things coordinate, and then training, right? Making sure people understand how these programs work and that front end leaders understand what you're doing so that they can pass on useful information to employees and make sure that they're not creating any problems. The number one thing that I see out there right now, and I just read another case law about this. I cannot stress enough. Front end leaders, they need help, and giving them the tools so that they can give proper information to employees is so important, because when you've got front end leaders saying no, you know that's not right. You know what's going to happen with that, right? You're going to get a letter from Finkelstein, Levine, Gittleson, and Tettenbaum, right? Because, and that is a real place, by the way. But because these laws are not meant for you to say no. So training and making sure everyone understands that and hitting it every single year. When the Department of Labor comes in, or any state comes in to do a review, the first thing they're going to say is, hey, we want to see your handbook. And when's the last time you went out and told anybody what's in this handbook? So being able to say, hey, we have training every quarter on a little piece. We do paid medical and family leave and ADA every single year in January. We give people their job descriptions so they know. Those are great things that any one of these regulatory bodies, the Department of Labor oversees FMLA, the Equal Employment Opportunity oversees Americans with Disabilities Act and Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And then the states are overseeing all of these state programs. When you are able to say, hey, here's what we do, here's the handbook, here's the last time it was updated, we're going out every quarter and sharing information, boom, boom, boom. That is a great way to kick off an audit, right? That's a great way. Not, hey, we haven't updated it, nobody knows, we really don't point them to it unless they have a claim. That's not what they want to hear. So help, give training, or partner with someone who can, right? Utilize a vendor who is saying, hey, we're going to be willing to do training for you and your front end leaders so everybody understands how these programs work. It's a lot of work. So let's talk a little bit about the three types of leave. And I get phone calls all the time about this. So paid family leave is providing wage replacement, probably providing job protection, and that's normal, right? Job protection is normally there for paid family leave, and this is that bonding, caring for a covered family member, sick and safe leaves, which is, domestic violence. These are all things that are covered by paid family leave. Paid medical leave and disability, statutory disability programs, again, providing wage replacement, generally providing job protection, but the states are kind of all over the board on that, right? As an example, New York State DBL does not provide job protection because it's saying if you're on FMLA, you're going to get the job protection from FMLA. But that's only for 12 weeks, and we know New York DBL is for 26. But it is all, so again, checking and understanding is really important. And then remember, that is only for the employee's own serious health condition, not for any of that paid family leave reason. And then there's paid sick leave. Now, paid sick leave, one, is not an insured type of program, right? Paid family leave, paid medical leave, DBL, these are insured type programs. But paid sick leave is absolutely going to be managed and matched to your company's sick vacation PTO program, right? So the management of that is yours. Understanding, oh my God, Cook County just passed paid sick leave. Okay, well, call up ADP and say, what are we doing? That's what needs to happen. Sick leave is absolutely based on accrual. The employee is earning time based on working, and they own that time. So they can really use it for almost anything. It doesn't have to be a covered family member. It doesn't need to be, they don't need to state it. There may be some rules and regulations that employers are using on these programs. But again, there was just legislation the other day in New York State no longer requiring a doctor note, right? It's getting more and more regulated. So understanding paid sick leave, accrued time, employee owns it. It is wage replacement. It is not job protected, right? To become job protected, if they're on paid sick leave, they have to be using FMLA. And if FMLA is not there or they're not eligible, then there's no job protection. And it is really at the employee how they use it. There's really no, once it's accrued, the employee can use it whatever way they want. So very, very different from FMLA, very different from paid medical leave and paid family leave. These are insured type events, and there will be insurance policies provided to cover them, or you're in the state plan. So very, very different. Paid sick leave is yours to admin. Now, some of you may have a vendor, probably all of you have a vendor who helps with that, but that is on you, very matched to your payroll and hourly timekeeping. I'm going to stop right there. Anybody have any thoughts, questions?
There's a question in the chat. It says, does sick PTO have to be paid out to the employee if they give notice?
Okay, so well, that's not on topic, right? So that is based on, and I'm going to preface this. You need to talk to your attorney, right? Normally, that's in your handbook. This is our company policy. We will pay that out if you have given us notice. So most of the time, that is the standard. But there are employers out there who say we don't need to. So talk to your attorney, look at your handbook before you make any hard determination on that. But that legislation is very different than what we're talking about here.
She said thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
It's in regards to the paid sick leave.
Okay.
Okay, my question here is, unless you spoke, maybe I missed that part. Why does the company pays, let's just say like certain percentage, and then the rest is paid through, I guess, the state or something, but sometimes it takes like close to 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Sometimes you do return and get your money, you know, like your check. I don't know if it's the same topic, but I'm kind of interested in the paid sick
Okay.
leave.
Okay, so that's not paid sick leave, right? So paid
Okay.
sick leave is going to be going through your payroll, right? This is a person using a sick day, right? They're
Oh, okay,
using sick
okay,
hours, right? So
okay.
that's going through your payroll. Now, if if you're in the state plan for your paid medical or paid family leave, well, we know the state plan can be very, very delayed, right? I'm
Right,
sure any of you have struggled with that in the past. I mean, again, during COVID, the state of Washington and the state of Massachusetts were reporting 90-day plus delays, right? Because the
right,
volume was so great. So that's, again, if you're going into the state plan and even a private plan, if the insurer is going through some troubles, maybe the Hartford had very high volume during COVID as well. We don't right now, but at the time, those delays can happen when you're waiting for the insurance company to pay. I think the key there is, and the takeaway when you're thinking about, hey, do I want to go with a private plan option where, hey, I'm working with the Hartford, or do I just want to go with the state option? I'm now all of you will get a little chuckle on your face, but calling the state of New Jersey and telling them to snap it up. You know what the result of that will be, right?
Right.
Good luck. Right? So, but if you call an insurance carrier, if you're with Hartford or Guardian or and say, hey, we need this to go faster, they'll do that, right? They're going to try their best to keep you as their customer happy. So a private plan option, I do feel will have significantly better customer service for you as the employer and for the employee. So, optional family leave.
Got one
Now,
more question
oh,
just
go right
got
ahead. Sure.
through.
Yep.
She said, did you say that NYS recently stated that employers can no longer ask for a sick note if someone is out sick for an extended period, possibly using STD, they still need to complete FMLA, correct?
That is correct. So it was only for to use sick time, right? It was only to use sick time. So, and it was just very recent legislation. It just was out like I just read it this week, and I'm in New York. But STD, that's a totally different animal, right? They have a definition of disability that they need to satisfy to take advantage of DBL and or PFL in any of these states. Things need to happen. You need doctor's notes, but it was specific to employer sponsored sick time. So translated, what that means is if they tell you you're sick, if they tell you they're sick, you got to believe them.
I think that's the last question for now.
Okay. So let's talk about optional family leave insurance. So this is kind of a new thing that's out there. Vermont and New Hampshire have these. They're voluntary programs. So what does that mean? The state doesn't need to go into the program. The state's not mandating it, but they're saying the employer can provide it if they want to. So, hey, we got a new line of insurance we can offer to you. You can buy it if you want to, but you don't have to. So I like the voluntary as, hey, a great way for employers who are nationwide to say, hey, for all of the states that have mandated programs, we're going to do what's in the mandated program. For any of you who are in the state that isn't mandated, we have this optional family leave program that we're going to offer to you. So where the Hartford is working on that, many of our competitors are as well, expanding that network of states that do not mandate the coverage, but are saying, hey, we know it's a needed benefit. So you'll probably be seeing more of that and hearing about more of that. But nice, it provides flexibility. There's different coverage options. And again, just keep it in your mind. And for those of you who are in Vermont and New Hampshire, you're very familiar with it. There's programs out there around it. But again, it is optional. It is not a required coverage in those states. So today we know in this very, very colorful map, right? Anything in the dark purple or a dark maroon, these states are already mandating paid medical and family leave. Anything in the pink, these are states that are saying, hey, you know what? We're thinking of doing voluntary. And then anything in green, they're already doing the voluntary. So there's a lot of activity happening out there. We want to make sure, again, that we understand where and when these things are happening, and also to understand, hey, what's going on? Because you can see all of the tan states, they have paid family and medical leave legislation kind of on the docket right now. Only these brown states, there's only 5 of them, do not have anything associated with paid family and medical leave introduced. That's only a very few states, right? 5 out of 50. So for anyone who is working with a multi-state employer, anyone who's working on the East Coast, anybody who's working on the West Coast, It is everywhere. So understanding and being ready and talking about it is so important. And this is not going to end, right? There's a ton of activity happening out there right now. In addition, there's over 750 pieces of legislation out there around non-paid leave laws in all of these states. So it's just a point to remember and look at the map and say, wow, we need to be ready, right? And when I talk about being ready, I always say, one, there's a lot of moving parts, and these plans continue to grow, and administration gets more complicated. So some key areas of understanding are needed. Let's talk about reasons for use. Let's talk about definition of covered family member, benefit duration, benefit amounts, eligibility requirements. So those are just 5 topics that are different in every single state. So when we talk about that complexity, understanding those key things becomes really, really important. And again, employees are going to be coming to you, and you're going to run into situations where they say, well, how come Brianna is getting coverage and you know, I'm not? Well, because she's in a state that has paid medical and family leave, and you are not. So understanding these differences and how they're going to be impacting your benefit plans, really important, right? So definition of a covered family member. Well, the FMLA definition is spouse, child, parent. So when you're going out on FMLA, those are the only people who can be allowed to get you FMLA coverage for caring for a family member, spouse, child, parent. Many states have extended that, right? Hey, we're going to go for siblings, we're going to go for grandparents, we're going to go for in-laws. And then we have a good group of states, Connecticut, Maine, Minnesota, Colorado. They're going even beyond family members. They're saying, hey, you know what? Anyone that you feel is related to you legally by blood or not is going to be covered. Well, guess what? That's going to come onto you, right? Because Brianna's out and she's in Connecticut, and her neighbor, her really close neighbor, and she's been helping her. She doesn't have any family, so Brianna's been taking her to her cancer treatments and really helping her and taking time off. And she uses her 12 weeks of FMLA. I'm sorry, her 12 weeks of Connecticut paid medical and family leave. Well, then Brianna's in an accident. And she goes to HR and she says, well, I've been in a car accident. I'm going to be out for 6 weeks. And her HR and benefit rep says, well, you don't have any time left. You already used 12 weeks. But Brianna knows what she's doing. And she says, hey, you know what? My neighbor, who I used that 12 weeks of Connecticut family leave for, she's not a covered family member under FMLA. I have my full 12 weeks of FMLA available to me. Understanding it, explaining it, tracking it, going to be complicated. Benefit duration. Is it 12, 12 to 18, 20 to 26, greater than 26? You have states falling in every single one of those categories, right? Cali, 52 weeks. New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, 20 to 26 weeks. When we're talking about the state of Washington and Colorado, 12 to 18 weeks. And then many states like Connecticut at 12 weeks. So that also, depending on where the employee is going to allow them more time. Benefit eligibility. Is it based on weeks? Is it based on hours? Is it based on dollars? Well, we know FMLA is all based on, hey, you've worked for us for 12 months and you have 1,250 hours prior to you becoming disabled. State of Massachusetts, you have to earn about $3,500 and work about 15 weeks. The state of New York to become eligible for paid family leave, 6 months. So that eligibility is all different. And what happens in that situation, right? I use this example all the time. You have a mother, she's working for you. She's has only been working for you for maybe 9 months before she delivers her baby. So she's not FMLA eligible, right? She's only been working you for 9 months, but she is New York paid family leave eligible. So she takes her time for paid family leave. But then what happens when she comes back to work and she hits her year anniversary? She's eligible for 12 weeks of FMLA too. The number one thing I say for an employer from a claims perspective, when you know you are in a state that is going to be adopting and going live for paid medical and family leave, pull all of those maternity claims that have happened in the year prior and assess them for what that is going to look like, because probably the majority of them will be able to get more time with money as you roll out that new paid family leave program.
Hey,
And
John, we
then
got a quick question while you're still on
sure.
this slide.
Yep.
Is paid state leave based on where the workplace is or where the employee lives? So, for example, what if someone is like contracted as a remote worker, or for example, myself, I live in Philadelphia, but Corporate Synergy's office is in New Jersey where I'm contracted at. So how would that work?
So from an FMLA perspective, big
Uh,
federal, right?
mhm.
Your work site is never your home, right? So in your example, right, Brianna, you're in Philly, but your work site is New Jersey. Your work site is New Jersey, right? That's FMLA. But from a state perspective, they are going to look at it and most states are going to lean in and say, if you are working at home in our state, then you are considered to be an employee of our state. Now, obviously, with all this hybrid activity, there has to be some more rules that are happening, right? So New Jersey is one. If your employer is paying unemployment insurance for you in New Jersey, you are a New Jersey employee. If you are paying state tax in New Jersey, then you are a New Jersey employee, even if you're living in PA. New York does the same thing. In fact, many of the states are building in and linking to unemployment insurance in most states. You need your attorney. You need to talk to them. Hey, these are the people that we have working in these other states. What do we need to do about them? And make a determination, be consistent about it, and communicate it to the employees. Use all of your tools. But remember that FMLA eligibility will never be home. It will never be. They have been very clear, and there's plenty of case law to support it. It is based on the work site. So you could be in Montana, but if your work site is Connecticut, then that 50 people in a 75-mile radius, don't even bother trying to say that person's not eligible for FMLA. They're going to be saying he reports into Connecticut. He receives his work from Connecticut. In Connecticut, there's 500 employees. He is eligible for FMLA. From a state perspective, he may be eligible for all that state law because that's where he is working and they're paying taxes. But from an FMLA perspective, it is his work site in Connecticut. Complex, right? The takeaway here, you need an attorney. You need to be consistent. It needs to be in your handbook, and understand each one of these states has different rules about it, but the state laws will tend to favor that if that employee is working in our state, then they are eligible for our benefit.
Thank you. I don't
Yep.
think there's no other questions right now.
Okay. All right. So, when the employee goes out, they only have two questions, right? How and when am I going to get paid? And do I have a job to come back? But all of these pieces are out here, right? And we've talked about them, work comp and ADA and, all those new supplemental health programs, hospital indemnity and, excuse me, critical illness, and there's paid sick leave, and there's paid Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, and there's EAP programs. Putting all of these puzzle pieces together for an employee is really your responsibility as the employer. We want to be focused on compliance, but we also want to make sure that how can we help you stay at work or return to work is an integral part of everything that you're doing so that people are coming back to work, saving dollars and days, and really focusing in on that. How can we help you stay at work or return to work is so important. And I say, in the advent of all of this coverage, employers, it's time to get creative. Because as all of you know, you throw some pay on it, are they going to take the time? Of course they are. So gone are the days that new mom might only stay out for 6 weeks because she's not going to get paid, right? Now she's getting paid, and she's getting paid for 26 weeks between her disability and her paid and her bonding. So employers, let's start being creative. Hey, we have a part-time program. Would you be willing to come back to work part-time for a period of time? Yes, we know it will extend you, but we'd like to get you back to work part-time. Hey, those baby boomers are retiring as fast as they possibly can right now. And hey, the Gen Xers like myself, we are too, right? Well, hey, we've got this whole good group of retirees. Can we tap into them so that when we've got these moms who are going out and taking 18 weeks in New York, we've got coverage for them, right? Taking 20 weeks in Massachusetts, we've got coverage for them. So employers, it's definitely as you're putting these puzzle pieces together and thinking about ways that you can really focus on helping people get back to work and certainly supporting your own productivity. Let's be creative, right? It's a new world we're living in. Not just sitting there and waiting for it to happen, but hey, we've got a plan. We understand that the end result of these programs is people are going to be taking time. So we have a way that we can continue to be productive even when these people are using that time. So let's look at what this might look like, right? So we've got new child option 1. Olivia is welcoming a new child to her family. She lives in New York. So ding, ding, ding. We've got DBL, we've got PFL, right? And she's worked for her employer, over 500 employees for 5 years. So we've got FMLA too, right? She makes $1,000 a week, and she plans to take leave time with a new baby. So what benefits is she going to be eligible, and how long is she job protected? And then how long is she going to get paid? Right? These are the things we need to be thinking about. What, how long, and how much? Well, it can look like this, right? So you've got Olivia, and she's out. She's getting New York DBL, right? So that did have a week unpaid elimination period. She's then collecting DBL for 6 weeks. And then on top of that, she's getting 12 weeks of PFL. So she's getting 18 weeks of coverage, right? Well, that's a lot. Well, and don't forget, she's got FMLA too, right? So FMLA is running here as well for 12 weeks. So I already told you that New York DBL is not job protected, but she's on FMLA here. So she's job protected here. Paid family leave is fully job protected. So even though her FMLA ends here, she's job protected right to the end. So you've gone from a situation before New York State added paid family leave that a person would get 6 weeks of DBL, maybe 8. they would get 12 weeks of job protection. So the last 4 of that or 6 of it wouldn't even have been paid. To now, this person is going to be out for 18 weeks, all of it paid and all of it job protected. Wow, that's an improvement. And New York PFL has a nice benefit level, right? 67% to like $1,200 right now. Okay.
We have some things in the chat. Someone said,
Surely.
but New York DBL is 177 per work versus New Jersey at about 1,100 per week. And
Yes, New Jersey's much more lucrative than New York. That is for sure.
someone said, so we first give the FMLA and disability, and then 6 weeks later have her submit the PFL. Question mark.
That's so again, when you look at the law, that's can be done that way, right? I think a lot of times, private, if you're in a private plan, so if you're in the state plan, that's exactly how it's going to be, right? They're only going to approve one segment at one time. If you're in a private plan, we'll say, hey, are you going to take that immediately following? Yes, we'll approve it right up front, right? But if you're in the state plan, they are going to do 2 separate approvals. Yes.
And then the last one, I think from a few slides prior, said, can an employer require state-paid FMLA or sorry, FML to run concurrently with federal FML when the rules are in alignment, parentheses, Delaware? Or can
Add, go ahead.
or can employees choose to apply for federal FML and decline to apply for state-paid FML and then use that state-paid leave at a later time within the year, extending their job-protected time out for up to an additional 12 weeks, for example? So
Yes.
sort of, I think what you just showed there.
Yep. So let's talk about that, right? Because that's coming up more and more. Now, there's a little bit of state activity out there that's trying to say, hey, yeah, it's not clear. One key thing to remember to take away, FMLA is not at the employee's option. It is also not at the employer's option. So FMLA is very clear. So that federal FMLA, and let's not call anything else FMLA, right? It is not FMLA. The only thing that's FMLA is Federal Family Medical Leave Act, right? That's it. When they are eligible, they are taking it. There's no option. It starts the day they stop working. Now, most of the states are very clear. We will be running concurrently with FMLA whenever possible. It is the intent. Some of the states have been a little less clear about, well, the employee can choose. So it's really not tested yet. I would say a rule of thumb is they're running concurrently whenever possible. And work with your attorney. It's in your handbook. They are running concurrently. So it is very clear because in this advent of all of this state legislation, oftentimes when the legislation itself is vague, they're going to go back to your handbook and they're going to say, hey, you know what? The legislation's not really clear, but what does your handbook say about it? So when your handbook says they run concurrently and it is not at the option of the employee, if they are eligible, then they are under this plan. Absolutely. The majority of states are going to say, okay, well, that's your handbook and it's in there and you communicated it, then that's what you're doing. So make sure it's in your handbook. Use your attorney, but the guideline is that they are running concurrently whenever possible, and it is not at the option of the employee. When they are eligible, they are getting it.
All right. I think that's, I don't know how much else you have, but there's a few more questions coming through.
Well, let's answer the questions. I mean,
Okay.
the rest of what I have is kind of like these examples,
Okay.
and then I can flip to the last slide. So let's answer the questions.
All right. So the next one says, can an employee use PTO during the elimination period?
Absolutely. So when FMLA is very clear, they can use it for the whole time. The employer can require it as well. So a lot of employers are saying that you have to. And that's a great way to buy down those time banks, which can be significant. So, yeah, again, I hate to keep saying you need to talk to your attorney and understand your state, but the short answer is yes. And make sure it's well documented, and this is what the requirement is, and you're doing it consistently for everyone. But FMLA is pretty clear. You can make them. You can make them.
Okay, and then the next one says New Jersey PFL parentheses baby bonding will give only 8 weeks if the leave is not continuous. Is that correct?
So I would have to look that up. And I would say the best thing for you to do is go out to the New Jersey site. You can also visit our site, www.thehartford.com/PFML, paid family medical leave. It will be on that site as well. I do remember that there was a little thing there initially, but I thought New Jersey changed that. So, but please, one of my recommendations from today's call is be using these sites, right? That is a great resource for you. New Jersey has some great frequently asked questions out there. Go out to their site, take a look at it. It will tell you.
And then someone said, what is the rule of thumb for employee contributions or payment for benefits such as medical, dental,
So now remember, FMLA is saying that the employee does need to make those payments, right? So the law is allowing the employer to say, you got to pay. But most of the paid, in fact, I'm going to say all of the paid medical and family uh, leave programs clearly state you cannot withhold any payments from this benefit. So if you're an employer and you only are doing the state plans, in that situation under FMLA, hey, you need to pay for your medical, dental, health, um, and you need to tell us how you're going to pay for that under FMLA. Now, if you have short-term disability, right, an ERISA short-term disability plan, in addition to a statutory plan, one of those mandated plans, normally we can withhold those payments from an ERISA short-term disability plan. So a lot of employers do that so that, hey, they're getting STD, they're getting paid medical and family leave, we're coordinating all of that, and then we're withholding the payments from their short-term disability benefit. So there's ways around it. That mandated plans, paid medical and family leave do not support withholding anything from that benefit. Short-term disability will, and FMLA is also, remember, FMLA is the top level, is the top dog of coverage because it's federal. So FMLA saying they need to pay for that does require that they have to pay for
Okay, thank you. And then one other person said they work from a small nonprofit, and so they have a pro bono legal counsel, but they're not as helpful as they could be. Do you have any suggestions of resources to go to for advice when there's complicated leave situations?
So, um, from an ADA perspective, Americans with Disabilities Act, the Job Accommodations Network is very, very helpful. So that's askjan.org. So you can always go out to the Department of Labor, dol.gov, and or the EEOC, which is for Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and ADA, that's eeoc.gov. They have a ton of information out there. You can ask them questions, they'll respond. They're live on Insta and Facebook. So they're doing a lot. And then Jackson Lewis, they are a leader in employment law. They also have some programs out there. You can go out and visit their site, and they are also more than happy to offer and help. So those are some good resources for all of you to use to help you with all of this very complicated stuff.
Perfect. And then we'll do one last question here and then wrap up. So the last question is, can you clarify the provisional details of the FMLA for documents of 15 days? Can an employee take leave and state Can an employee take leave and state they are in a provisional period until forms are completed by a healthcare provider?
Short answer, yes. All right. So I know we haven't talked a ton about FMLA today. I have a great session on FMLA, and Corporate Synergies and I are talking all the time about some additional things. So I'd be more than happy to do that. FMLA says an employee has 15 days to submit medical. That 15 days is always protected time. So even if the employee did not provide anything, um, at the end of the day, that first 15 days is always, always, always going to be protected. Now, if they don't come back to work, then beyond that 15 days, they're not protected anymore, right? But if they do come back to work within that 15 days and they never gave you any medical, it's protected time. So those are, please be very careful with that. You need an attorney to talk about what that looks like. But provisionally, that 15 days is always, always, always protected.
Perfect. Do you want to go to your next slide, or I could just wrap up now?
So let's just kind of take a look at, we've already talked about these additional resources, right? So we've talked about Ask Jan and EEOC and come to the Hartford as well, please. But just some tips, right? Let's review those paid sick time and PTO, make sure that they're compliant, make sure they dovetail with those leave laws, do that training so that everyone knows. Make sure your handbook is updated. And I know I've mentioned that several times because the courts will default to your handbook if ever there's a gray area. Waiting periods, definitions, benefits differing from state to state. We talked a lot about that. So let's make sure that we do understand that. Make sure we understand, right? FMLA's out there. Like I said, top dog. It's there. If you are an employer and FMLA applies to you, it is always there. And make sure that you're monitoring your business plan and where you're doing business and where you're growing or where you're contracting so that you know what you need to do. And certainly, hey, legal counsel is really important. And do you want to co-source with someone? Partner with the Hartford or Unum or whoever, but to help you with this because it's not going to go away. So those are some things I say let's talk about. And I did want to hit just quickly. Let's go back and say, hey, did we hit everything? So we talked about the evolution of paid medical and family leave. Certainly, I think all of you have a better understanding of the differences between paid family, paid medical, and sick leave. It's complex. We talked a lot about that. Hey, what are employers doing right now? How does it all work together? We did a good review of that. And then we just talked about those tips and takeaways and all those resources. So we're here to help you. Reach out to your friends at Corporate Synergy. Use those resources I gave you. We want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that that you are doing everything consistently and compliantly, but also helping your employees when they're going out on leave.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Sean. We appreciate you sharing your insights and expertise. Definitely had a lot to share there. I'm sure everyone found that super helpful. The chat's going off. Um,
Great.
and thank you to everyone else who joined us today. We hope you found the session valuable. As a reminder, this is part one of our webinar series with John. So feel free to register for the next two sessions on August 13th and August 28th. Once again, the SHRM credits and HRCI credits will be awarded to you if eligible, and we will be sending out the slides and the recording as well, which will be on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I will add to the chat some links for you guys.
All right, everybody, enjoy. Hopefully you'll come to the next sessions. More good stuff. Have a great
Thanks,
afternoon,
John.
everyone. Yep.